Hey everybody, Who's Your Jedi here with another review for you. This time talking episode 8 of season 3 of The Flash called Invasion. Here's episode 2 of our big Heroes vs. Aliens CW crossover. The ball only really got rolling a tiny bit on Supergirl. Here is where things just go full force, and oh man, is this one hell of an hour of TV. So let's just get right into it. So, being able to see the scene in Kara's apartment again, I kind of have to rescind some of my thoughts I made about how Cisco is reacting in my Supergirl review. Here, the whole thing of referring to him as Barry's partner, yeah, it's clear Cisco is seriously pissed at Barry still, and not for unjustifiable reasons. And what I like about this episode is the whole time through, it's made very clear Cisco is nowhere near willing to forgive Barry for the whole, Flashpoint, my brother is dead thing. I mean, Caitlin's attempt to sort of try and make peace between them falls painfully flat. But Cisco is a cool enough guy that he realizes, like, look, as mad as I am about Barry, I really the entire world is in danger. I need to kind of put that aside. But he never lets it go. And, like, for example, when everybody is teamed up, Cisco is very quick to say that he thinks Oliver should be the leader of everybody there. And, frankly, Oliver is the person that really does make the most sense. But Cisco does it in such a way that his argument, of course, makes sense, but you can tell just by the way his tone of voice and his expression that Barry is a jerk is really what's foremost on his mind. And it is also kind of worth noting that when the Justice League was originally created, the Flash was the very first leader of the Justice League. And we'll talk some more about that later on, but okay, screw it. I've got to talk about it now. The whole thing about this Star Labs warehouse being the Hall of Justice. Oh my god. I mean, we even heard the term Super Friends in this episode. I just cannot believe it. Now, if you don't know, the Hall of Justice is one of the headquarters over the years that's been used by the Justice League. It was originally introduced on the old Superman Friends cartoon, which ran in the late 70s and the early 80s, and was actually basically the design was copied from a train station in Cincinnati, Ohio. And apparently the people behind the show actually got some footage of that train station, CGI'd it, and turned that into the Star Labs warehouse / hall, which, if you're a comic fan, one day is destined to become the headquarters of the Justice League. Now, why a warehouse has a cool-looking fountain out in front of it, not really sure, but, the Hall of Justice on Super Friends had a really cool-looking fountain. And the Hall of Justice was even used on one of the Justice League animated shows. I mean, that series wrapped up with all the heroes actually running out of the Hall of Justice, having given a whole bunch of the supervillains a 5-minute head start. And it's popped up once or twice in the comics itself. And Super Friends is as goofy as it is, something that has a very dear place in the hearts of a lot of comic book fans, like, including me. That was basically like the first superhero TV show that I could ever remember watching when I was a kid. And they did choose an extremely beautiful and interesting looking building, that train station, to base it on. So, I mean, it's just something very unique that has a lot of nostalgia for people. And again, when we saw the team up between Arrow, Flash, and Firestorm back in season 1, we saw that little seed planted for what would eventually become the Justice League. And now here we get to see that taken to a whole new level. And I mean, it's just glorious. Let's see, what else? Let's put the main alien stuff aside and just sort of focus on the Flash stuff for a moment. So Wally is doing super, super well with his powers. Joe is, astonished by all this, but naturally he's worried. And Iris, in what seems like a little bit of out of character for her, openly conspires with the others to not encourage Wally, to go out there and try and, be a superhero, even though, yeah, he obviously has everything it takes to be, in terms of powers, to be a fantastic, hero. the whole thing is like, don't encourage him. We're not going to try and train him. I mean, you can see where Iris is coming from, but it really doesn't make logical sense. But the episode does show that she is not without a good point. When Wally does run out there and ultimately does save a bunch of the other heroes, he does succeed, but he does get hurt in the process. So that kind of goes to show you that, yeah, Wally has what it takes to be a hero, but he desperately needs the training in order to be able to do this safely. And, he turns to, of all people, HR, who initially goes along with what Iris was saying, but by the end comes around and goes like, okay, man, I'll train you. Because HR has seen that it's exactly that. Wally can't be a great hero, but he does need someone to help him get there safely. Which, again, kind of lends some real value to HR sticking around. But getting back to the whole main invasion thing, this is of course based on the famous invasion storyline from the comics written by Keith Giffen. The Dominator's original character design was created by the legendary Todd McFarlane, probably best known for Spawn these days, although not too long after that he would actually go on to, I think, a pretty good run on Spider-Man. But nonetheless, Invasion was a big deal back in, I think it was in the late 80s that they did the story. Anyway, just sort of everybody reacted to like, oh my god, aliens have shown up on Earth. And what I really love is the aliens just pop out of the ship and just run away. It's like, how far do you guys expect to be able to get on foot? And it was cool to see Lila again. I'm not sure who this like old guy in the government was who's like, you know what, Amanda Waller lasted so long because she did what I said. You better do that. Like, who the hell are you? We do get to see that the CW verse apparently has a different president than Kara's Earth, which is Earth 38 officially, which I assume is a reference to 1938 when the first Superman comic appeared. Of course, the president doesn't last through the end of the episode. And what's really hilarious is the president gets murdered by aliens right in front of everybody, and nobody really says anything about it. But anyway, the heroes teaming up. It's really great. Obviously, a little disappointed that they decided to sort of do the whole thing with like Oliver and Dig need Barry to save them from Vigilante. I mean, Vigilante had been shown to be an extremely dangerous guy who was a real threat to them, but this sort of thing of like, oh, once again, Oliver would be dead if Barry hadn't intervened at precisely that particular moment. It's like, this is pushing it a bit. Although Dig having to go up outside to throw up after getting carried by Barry, and then Oliver just going like, oh, for the love of God. I mean, that was just hilarious. And I also kind of liked everybody's reaction to Kara. She pops up, and they're like, okay, we're going to, like, Barry, I'm like, okay, I brought an alien to help us, and, here comes this, like, pretty blonde girl in a skirt and cape, and everybody's like, are you kidding? And of course, she flies and shoots lasers out of her eyes, and then, everybody, like, Dig sums it up pretty quickly. It was like, well, I'm convinced. That was great. And then, everybody tries to fight her, and they get their butts kicked. It is worth noting, of course, that Steel, who in the Old West episode on Legends of Tomorrow showed that he was literally more powerful than a locomotive, and Vixen, who has magic, which Superman is notably vulnerable to, as well as Kryptonite, are the ones who are left off to the side, because, of course, they would be the ones who would actually have a pretty good chance of doing some damage to Kara. It was also pretty hilarious to see Kara's reaction to Heatwave. That was great stuff. It's like, oh yeah, I burned my family alive, and I like to set stuff on fire. Oh, okay. That's how things roll on Earth 1, Kara. It was also funny to see Sarah sort of like react. It's like, oh yeah, she's tough. That's hot. Now, there was also some really great dramatic stuff. We get to see what was that message was from Barry in the future. It seemed a little weird to me that everybody would immediately assume that this whole situation with Flashpoint is what Barry was referring to, given that, it's 40 years in the future and a lot of stuff could have happened between now and then. And, of course, Oliver incorrectly points out, like, look, we'll tell the others about this, But we'll tell them after this is all sorted out because we don't need this distraction right now. Oliver makes the totally right call on that. The heroes need to be focused. And then, of course, Cisco decides to be a dick and tell them about this. And again, this is really more Cisco being a dick than anything else. Although, given the tendency of Team Flash to keep secrets from each other, you kind of understand why he might be a little distrustful of Barry. Yeah, especially given recent events. And it does exactly what you think with driving this huge wedge with everybody. Dig finds out that in another reality he has a daughter. A little disappointed that there was no reaction from Sarah that Dig would have named his kid after her. I also like that Oliver was the only one who was really sympathetic with Barry. He's like, man, if I was in your position, I would have done exactly the same thing. And if you look at Oliver's life, it's pretty much impossible not to think that, yeah, of course Oliver would have done the same thing. Oh, and just on a tangent here, I love how they made this big deal on Arrow about Thea hanging up the tights early in the season. As soon as somebody comes along and mentions it, and she's like, oh, I'm totally shooting up again. And Oliver goes like, seriously? And she's basically like, aliens? Like, this is too cool for me to not put the togs on again. And really, one of the things that really gets me about this episode is that after the truth comes out about, a future message, Sarah lays into Barry about, you can't change history for selfish reasons. And, I learned a lesson about that. Which is like, okay, Sarah, you have tried to change history to save your sister. The other episode, you you messed around with history just to screw with Damien Dark's mind, and that's gearing up to blow up in your face. Never mind all the recklessness that you guys have caused in your time traveling adventures, including you personally messing with French history because you were horny and wanted to bang the Queen of France. Barry changed history to save the life of his mother who was murdered. Sarah changed history because she was horny. Yeah. And then they even say, like, hey, wait a minute, this whole Flashpoint thing, this might be the cause of those time anomalies that we've been dealing with. Well, no, it looks like the cause of those time anomalies you've been dealing with has either been the Reverse Flash or, time criminals, which you already knew about. So trying to lay this on Barry doesn't make any damn sense. I did like how we did see that one of the changes that resulted in Flashpoint is that Martin Stein now has a daughter. And I guess Iris points out to him, it's like, you know what, here, this shows that, not all the things that Barry changed about history are bad. I mean, Martin, when he started first having visions of his daughter, Martin said, like, I've seen visions of this woman and I think I love her. And, well, yeah, of course, it's his daughter. He had with his wife, Melissa, whom he adores. And, it makes perfect sense that Stein Martin would love her. Let's see, what else? Oh, yeah, of course we have the whole thing with the Dominators brainwashing the heroes and just leaving Oliver and Barry to fight everybody. And I love that bit where Oliver doesn't blame Barry for the whole time travel situation, but the whole thing of, like, Barry, everybody's trying to kill us. The minute you come to Star City, I suddenly find myself up a creek, and Barry is just like, yeah, you're right. This is kind of my fault. And, I mean, just that fight sequence and the shots of the heroes all together. It's just like, oh my god, this so feels just exactly like a comic book come to life. It's exactly what it should be. It's all getting pulled off on a television budget, which is even more amazing. And it's being pulled off well. Seeing everybody, like Oliver and Barry, trying to take everybody down. I mean, Oliver even runs out of arrows during the fight, which is kind of something we don't really see happen very much. Barry pulls a very smart trick to ultimately snap Supergirl out of the mind control, which was really cool. And I love that whole line of, okay, Carl, let's see which one of us is really faster. In the comics, it was long held that Barry, the Flash, and Superman were kind of tied in terms of speed. Although in more recent interpretations, it's been stated pretty explicitly that, like, yeah, if he wants to, the Flash can totally skunk Superman in terms of speed. There's this great scene where Barry and Superman were actually talking about it. They would sometimes like have Flash versus Superman races for charity. And Superman was trying to catch up to him, and he's like, "Come on, Barry, you can't outrun me." And remember all those races we had? And then Barry just turns to him and goes, "Those were for charity, Clark," and then just zips way the hell away and just completely leaves Superman in the dust. That's a great moment. So let's see what else. The episode ends, of course, with the non-powered heroes getting abducted by the Dominators, which serves as a nice lead into what's going to be happening on Arrow. And yeah, guys, I really have very little to complain about with this episode. I mean, this is just comic book TV at its very best, and it still blows my mind that we're lucky enough to live in a day and age where we get to see stuff like this. So yeah, I am so looking forward to seeing some more of this crossover. I don't know if this is going to become an annual thing on the CW. If they can keep this level of quality up, this is going to be like one of the highlights of my TV viewing year every year for as long as these shows are around. So let's call it here, guys. As always, please comment, rate, and subscribe. Of course, you can follow me on Twitter at Hoosier Jedi, and please also join me on Tumblr at Jedi Reviewer. Till next time, take care and have a good one.